Two women dining on a restaurant patio attracted the attention of passers-by, but the friends were too engrossed in chatting with each other to pay attention. How long has it been since we've seen each other, Melanie? A tall, dark-haired woman asked. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. The second woman was blonde and a year or two younger than her friend. I know, Jerry, and I feel bad about it. But between grad school and married life, it's been hard to find time for much else. How's business school going? You must be close to getting your MBA by now. Yes, everything is in perfect order. We have spring break next week, and then there will only be a few weeks of classes left before I get my diploma. I've already turned in my thesis, so I don't have to worry about that. And even better, it looks like I'll be exempt from all my finals. Everything should be smooth sailing from here on out. That's great, Melanie. Congratulations. Do you have a job yet? No. I've been working really hard for the past 2 years, so I'm planning on taking a little break before I get involved in the labor wars. I want to relax and have some fun before I jump back into work. But enough about me. How are things going for you? Has a special man come into your life? I'm doing well, but I'm still looking for Mr. Right. The blonde gave her brunette friend an appraising look. With your looks, I'd be slow to settle down. I bet you could party with a different beau every night if you wanted to. Jerry gave her friend a wry smile. Trust me, Melanie, the single life these days isn't all it's cracked up to be. You have to go through a dozen creeps to find one decent guy, and frankly, it's getting tiresome. Truth be told, I'm a little jealous of you, happily married to a great guy like Adam. And speaking of Adam, how's your handsome husband doing? I think he's fine. Oh, I think I just heard a discouraging word. What's the matter, Melanie? Aren't things between you two just fine? The blonde shook her head. It's not that we're having problems. It's just that Adam is so busy with his business that we don't have time to spend time together. And even when we do, we don't have a lot of money to spend on entertainment. Well, all that time he spends on his company is focused on building a future for the two of you. And as for money, I suspect your graduate school tuition isn't cheap. I know, and I appreciate it. But sometimes I just want to go out and have fun like I used to. In high school, all my classmates talk about is going to parties and meeting people at bars. Meanwhile, I sit at home and watch reruns on TV. The dark-haired woman gave her friend a shrewd look. Is there anyone in particular at school you'd like to go to a party with? Melanie laughed. You've always been able to read me too well. Then she leaned forward so she wouldn't be overheard. Actually, there's this freshman, Carl. He's really nice. She then blushed. And he's definitely interested in me. Every time we're together, he goes out of his way to say something really nice about how good I look and how well I'm doing in school. Jerry shook her head. I don't think Adam would be very happy to hear that. It's just harmless flirting. It doesn't mean anything. But you're right. Adam's pretty old-fashioned about that sort of thing. That's why I'm not going to tell him. She moved in her chair. But I can't help but remember how things were before I got married. It was so much fun playing the field and meeting different guys. I miss all of that. You need to be more careful, girlfriend. You have a hell of a husband, and you don't want to risk losing him. You know Adam would never tolerate it if he caught you fooling around. And if you ever did, I'm willing to bet there'd be plenty of other women who'd gladly comfort him afterward. I know. And honestly, I want to spend the rest of my life with him, start a family and all that. I just want to have a little fun before things get so serious. She lowered her voice and leaned closer again. Remember the guy I told you about? Yesterday he asked me to go to Florida with him for spring break. If I could do it without Adam finding out, I'd probably say yes. She leaned back and grinned contemptuously. But that's just a fantasy. It'll never happen. Jerry leaned back in her chair and looked at Melanie for a long time. Finally, she nodded her head as if she had made a decision. Don't be so sure. I know how you could do it and get away with it. Melanie let out a sigh that was equal parts disbelief and delight. You're kidding me. How? Are you sure you want to jeopardize your marriage just for a week-long affair? If I was sure Adam would never find out, why wouldn't I? But you're just teasing me, Jerry. There's no way I could avoid something like that. There is, and it's actually quite simple. Jerry began marking each step on her fingers. First, you need to create a new email account on Gmail. Set it up under an anonymous name, something like Good Friend. Then you use that account to send Adam an anonymous email, warning him that his wife is having an affair. I'm going to tell him I'm having an affair? That's crazy. Why would I do that? Jerry continued nonchalantly. More accurately, you'll tell him that Melanie is having an affair with some man that Adam doesn't know and can't easily verify. And what will that do? No. It'll take his attention away from your hot grad school boyfriend. Yeah, but it'll make Adam suspicious of me. Exactly. But when he can't find the guy you're supposedly having an affair with, he'll have no choice but to confront you and demand to know what's going on. But I don't want him to suspect me. No, you don't. So when he confronts you, you will be very angry with him for not trusting you. In fact, you get so angry that you call a time out on your marriage. Doesn't your mom live in Florida? Melanie was caught off guard by the sudden change. Yeah, why? Great. In anger, you tell Adam you're going to go to Florida over spring break to be with your mother and decide what to do about your marriage. And then, while he's here in town desperately trying to find a mystery man, you're in Florida with Carl having your little affair. How am I going to explain all this to Mom? Jerry rolled her eyes. You don't? What's more, you're not even supposed to see your mother while you're there. But what if Adam calls her? Tell him not to. Tell him you need a break from him to sort things out. He shouldn't try to contact you or your mother while you're away. Warn him that if he tries, you may not come home at all. Melanie stared at her friend for a while, mulling over her plan. Finally, her face brightened. You know, Jerry, I can see how this could work. But what happens when I get back? That's easy. Adam will miss you madly by then. And since he won't be able to find the mystery man who supposedly had an affair with you, he'll conclude that someone maliciously played a trick on you. He will feel very guilty and will beg you to forgive him for not trusting you. You will forgive him and everything will be fine. You'll have fun, and now you and Adam will be together again, closer than ever. Right. What about the mystery man I'm supposed to be having an affair with? Should I just make up a name for him? You could, but I think it would be much more believable if it was a real person. Pick someone you can't have an affair with, like someone very old or living far away or dead. That way, if Adam manages to track him down, you'll stay safe. Hey, I think I know the perfect guy. I had a creepy professor in one of my classes my first year of grad school. He must have left town because I never saw him again. How about that? Perfect. Melanie abruptly reached across the table and squeezed her friend's hand. You're the best, Jerry. I'm so excited. I really think this is going to work. Then she hugged herself and shuddered slightly. I can't wait to tell Carl. Adam Weatherby. Any word from the supplier on those parts we ordered? When the foreman shook his head, Adam returned to his office and sank into his second-hand swivel chair. He rubbed his forehead worriedly. If these parts don't show up soon, we're going to miss the prototype deadline. After the foreman left, Adam sat back and tried to come up with a backup plan. When his email box rang, he quickly turned to check his inbox, hoping for good news. But when he saw that the subject line was "About your wife," he almost deleted the email. But curiosity took over and he opened the message. I hate to break it to you, but Melanie is having an affair with Professor Bellingham. I just thought you should know. A good friend. What the hell? Stunned, Adam reread the message once more, unable to comprehend the horrible words. What kind of nonsense was this? It can't be true. Melanie wouldn't cheat on me. Someone must be trying to stir up animosity between us. But who's doing it and why? He started to delete the message but hesitated. That's the last thing I need to deal with right now. It has to be a mistake, a misunderstanding. But his practical side wouldn't let him ignore the message. Damn it, of course it couldn't be true. With anger, he clicked the reply button on the email. Who the hell are you? Why are you making such a horrible accusation? What proof do you have? He pressed send and then stared at the screen in impotent rage. This wasn't going to lead to anything good. There was no telling when this guy would respond, or if he would respond at all. And there's no way to track him down. Maybe we'd better start figuring out who this Bellingham guy was. He opened a browser, went to the university's webpage, and searched for professors in the Graduate School of Business. There was no Professor Bellingham on the staff. He went back to the faculty roster and searched the entire university. Again, he had no luck. Frustrated, he turned to other schools in the area, but all to no avail. "This is crazy," he muttered to himself. "Did my good friend just make up a name?" Next, he tried a Google search, and the search engine quickly came up with 5 names. But 2 of them were female, and none were local. I knew it was fake. Someone was trying to mess with me, or drive me crazy. But again, he could not bring himself to delete the letter. Now that it had been sent, a seed of doubt began to germinate in his mind. God, what if she's having an affair? I haven't seen any signs, but that doesn't mean anything yet. Besides, I've been so busy at work that I've barely spent any time with her. What if she gets upset about being ignored? I know there have been times when she's wanted to go out and have fun and I've turned her down. But hell, I work almost 70 hours a week trying to run a business. Doesn't she understand that? Doesn't she see that I'm doing all this for us? And to be honest, we really can't afford anything extravagant. Her business school tuition gets more expensive every year, and I'm putting everything I have left into this place to try to get it off the ground. Still, I guess I've been neglecting her. With guilt, he started checking his calendar, trying to find the last time they'd met. After scrolling through 3 months and finding nothing, he stopped looking. Damn. But even as the guilt grew, he felt a corresponding surge of anger. I may not have given Melanie as much attention as she wanted, but that doesn't give her the right to cheat on me. Besides, we discussed the sacrifices we would have to make when we decided to start the business. She agreed 100% then, so she hardly has a right to complain now. His musings were interrupted by the foreman poking his head through the doorway. "Hey, Adam. Good news. The components we need just showed up." "Thank goodness. All right, let's unpack them and get them to the store as soon as possible." As the foreman disappeared, Adam took a deep breath. Well, at any rate, one crisis averted. He grinned crookedly. I guess that means I can spend more time taking care of my wife. After spending even more time fruitlessly searching the internet, he sat back and tried to think. If Mel is really having an affair, he just has to be with someone at the university. Maybe my good friend got his name mixed up, or maybe the university just didn't put his name on their website. He went back to the university's webpage and found the phone number for the Human Resources Department. When the secretary answered his call, he asked if Professor Bellingham was on the faculty. "What department, please?" "I think it's the Graduate School of Business, but I don't know exactly." There was a pause, and then a voice came on the line again. "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have a Professor Bellingham in the School of Business." "What about the other schools?" A sigh was heard. "Please wait." This time, the wait was longer. When the woman finally returned to the line, her manners were gone. "Sir, there is no Professor Bellingham at the university." A thought struck him. Maybe he was a staff member a year or 2 ago? "I can only confirm the current faculty." "Why?" "It's university policy, sir. Is there anything else I can help you with?" "No, you've done all you can," he said, trying not to sound too sarcastic. He made another attempt, calling the dean of the business school. He went back and forth with the administrative assistant, but in the end, he didn't learn anything more. By this time, Adam's head was throbbing. "I need a good stiff drink," he thought with disgust as he hung up the phone. But the thought gave him an idea, and he picked up the phone once more. "Hey, Jerry, it's Adam. Listen, any chance of meeting me after work at Maxie's for a drink? I've got a problem, and I really need your advice." "No, I'd rather not talk about it over the phone. Can you do that?" "Great. I'll meet you there at 6. Before leaving, he checked his email one more time. There were no more messages from good friend. Entering Maxie's, Adam noticed Jerry sitting at a table in a quiet corner. In front of her was a glass of white wine and a mug of his favorite draft beer. He walked over and kissed her cheek. Thanks for the beer and, more importantly, for coming tonight. I really needed to talk to you. When he sat down, she took a sip of wine and then looked at him for a long moment. Okay, Adam, spill it. What's going on? Any problems in your business? Not knowing where to begin, he stared at his mug for a moment, then mumbled, You wouldn't happen to know Professor Bellingham from the university, would you? She shook her head, puzzled. Bellingham? I've never heard of him. Why? He sighed and held out a printout of an email to her. I got this today. She scanned it quickly, gasped, and reread it again. Then she looked at him with sympathetic eyes. Poor Adam. No wonder you didn't want to talk about it over the phone. What do you think about it? I don't know what to think, Jerry. I can't believe it's true, but I don't want to bury my head in the sand and pretend it didn't happen either. I've spent all day trying to track down this mysterious Professor Bellingham, but I've hit a stone wall at the university. Now I don't know what to do. I can't afford to hire a private detective, and I don't have time to play detective myself. That's why I wanted to talk to you. You've been a good friend to Melanie and me for a long time. Please tell me what you think. She took another sip of her drink and then reached out to give his palm a quick squeeze. What you're really asking is if I think she's having an affair. I can't give you that absolute certainty. For one thing, I haven't seen or heard anything that would make me think she was unfaithful to you. For another, I haven't seen much of her in the last few months. His face creased in pain, and she hurried to continue. You know as well as I do that there are some people who like to cause trouble, and it could be something like this. Or you may have business enemies who would like you to be distracted by the friction in your marriage. There are probably other scenarios that I haven't even thought of. What I do know is that you can't ignore it and hope it will go away on its own. I know how much you believe in marital fidelity, and I know that any hint that your marriage has been broken will eat away at you. If you don't deal with it, the doubt will eventually ruin your relationship with Melanie as effectively as the affair. He stared at her with a hunted expression. I know you're right, Jerry, but what can I do? In my opinion, you should show the damned thing to Melanie. She needs to know that someone has accused her of infidelity, and she deserves the chance to shine the light she has on it. After all, Adam, if someone made such an accusation against you, you'd want to know, wouldn't you? He sat silently for a moment, then nodded his head. You're right. If I don't share this with Melanie, it will affect how I act with her. It will eventually separate us just as surely as if she had actually cheated on me. He stood up and hugged the dark-haired woman. Thank you for helping me think this through, Jerry. I don't know what I would have done without you. You know how much I care about you two, Adam. If I can help you in any way, please let me know. He nodded gratefully and headed for the door while she remained standing still. When he got home, Melanie was waiting for him. Where have you been, Adam? I tried to call, but you didn't answer. He ignored her question. Taking her hand, he led her over to the couch and sat her down beside him. I need to show you something, Mel. Something that's been throwing me off my game. She sat down next to him, her face betraying her nervousness. He held out a printout to her. I received this in an email today. Can you tell me anything about it? She read it quickly. Then, to his surprise, she jumped up and started yelling. Do you think I'm cheating on you? I don't believe that. You got some bullshit accusation from some anonymous friend, and you're ready to accuse me of cheating? No, honey, I didn't accuse you of anything. If you didn't accuse me, then why did you show me these filthy lies? She snatched up the printout, rolled it into a ball, and tossed it at him. You might as well have plunged a knife into my heart. It hurts me so deeply. You trust a man who is too cowardly to even sign his name more than you trust your own wife. She grabbed her purse and headed for the front door. I can't bear to even look at you right now. I'm leaving and I don't know when I'll be back. With those words, she ran out, slamming the door behind her. A moment later, he heard the roar of her car's engine and then the squeal of tires as she pulled out of their driveway. Oh shit, I didn't see that coming. Now I feel even worse than before, he groaned, sinking down onto the couch and wrapping his arms around his head. As he sat there, Adam's first thoughts were defensive. Why would she be so upset? She didn't even let me finish. I didn't accuse her of cheating. I just showed her what someone else said, that's all. But he knew the answer before he even finished. If Mel had passed that note to me, I probably would have blown up too. But what was I supposed to do? Act like everything was fine? Jerry was right. I couldn't just ignore the letter. That wouldn't be fair to Mel or to me. Although he spent the rest of the evening mentally going over the situation, he no sooner came to a solution than he started. He knew that he and Mel needed to talk, but he couldn't even decide exactly what to say to her. All he knew for sure was that he wanted to bring his wife home to try and patch things up. Emotionally drained, Adam felt himself starting to tire, but he was determined not to go to bed until Melanie returned. After another hour of waiting, he lay down on the couch and soon dozed off. Sometime after midnight, he was awakened by the sound of the door opening. Melanie walked into the living room and stared at him with her hands on her hips. Mel, we really need to... I don't want to talk about this right now, she cut him off abruptly. You can stay on the couch for the night and we'll talk in the morning. Without waiting for an answer, she turned on her heels and headed down the hallway to their bedroom. When he heard the door slam, he groaned and lay back on the couch, hoping sleep would return. It was taking a long time. Adam usually got up early to get to the office before anyone else. But even though his internal clock woke him at the usual time, he felt obliged not to leave until Melanie showed up so they could talk. He brewed some coffee and sat down at his laptop to read the news while he waited. It was almost 8 o'clock when Melanie walked into the kitchen. Adam was shocked to see her dragging a suitcase behind her. Where are you going, Melanie? I thought we were going to... And he didn't have time to finish before she raised her hand to stop him. It's been a terrible shock, Adam. It calls our whole marriage into question. I need to be alone to process what has happened. Spring break starts tomorrow and I'm going to go to Florida to visit my mother. She pierced him with an angry look. I plan to spend the whole week there and then go back to classes next Monday. While I'm gone, I don't want to hear a word from you. I need this time to myself. Don't call me. Don't call my mother. Don't call my mother's house. Do you understand? He nodded helplessly. I'm serious, Adam. If you try to call, I may not come home at all. Do you understand? He nodded again. Fine, she stated emphatically, and walked out the door to her car, dragging her suitcase behind her. As she drove away, Adam sat in shock for several minutes. Finally, he went back into the bathroom to shave and change his clothes. Then he drove dejectedly to work. When he got to the office, good news awaited him. His foreman had taken the lead in distributing the missing components to the right stations on the model production line, and testing was well underway. At least the business won't crash and burn today, unlike my marriage, Adam said bitterly to himself. In the afternoon, he was working on a spreadsheet when the phone rang. When he answered, it was Jerry on the line. I was worried and wanted to see how you were doing. How did it go last night with Melanie? Oh, wow, it's a long and sad story, he replied dejectedly. Oh, that doesn't sound good. Why don't we get together and talk about it again over a drink? That would be great, Jerry. Same place, okay? He checked his email one more time before leaving, but there was still nothing from Goodfriend. When he walked into the bar, Jerry immediately noticed the dark circles under his eyes. Poor Adam. Looks like you didn't get much sleep last night. Tell me what happened. He took a large sip from his beer mug and began to recount the night's encounter and Melanie's morning departure. Jerry looked at him with a mixture of sadness and guilt. Oh, Adam, I feel so awful. You took my advice and it turned out to be the wrong thing to do. No, Jerry, I've given it a lot of thought, and I'm convinced it was the only thing I could have done. I certainly didn't expect Mel to react so angrily, but there was no way I could have kept that letter to myself and pretended that nothing had happened. Now I can only hope that she'll cool down, and we can talk things over when she gets home. You say that so nicely, Adam, but I still feel guilty about what happened. So what are you going to do for the rest of this week? I don't know, Jerry. I don't see any way for Mel and I to move on if we don't talk about what happened. Maybe I'll wait a few days and then try calling her. No, Adam. That's the one thing you shouldn't do. She already thinks you don't trust her. If you try to contact her after she explicitly told you not to, it will only prove to her that she was right. Yeah, I guess I realize that. But I feel helpless as hell. I don't know any way to find out who sent the letter. The only thing I can do while she's gone is keep trying to figure out who this Professor Bellingham guy is. That makes sense. If you could find him, maybe he could fill in some blanks for you. Over the next few days, Adam repeatedly tried to solve the mystery of the anonymous letter. Despite his lack of success, he was still convinced that Bellingham was somehow connected to the university. And then it hit him. Maybe the reason I can't find this guy is because he's an alumnus, not a faculty member. Well, I'm an alumnus too, so maybe the Alumni Relations Office can help. When he called and identified himself as an alumnus, Adam was immediately transferred to the development office. The staff member who answered the phone wrote down all of Adam's address, phone number, and email information. He then asked how much Adam wanted to contribute to the alumni fund. No, I'm not calling to make a contribution. I'm trying to track down Professor Bellingham. I think he might be an alumnus. The man paused while he checked several databases. I'm sorry, sir, but we don't seem to have ever had an alumnus by that name. Really? What about graduate schools? I checked those as well. Maybe he's not a graduate. Maybe he went for a year or two and then dropped out or transferred. The guy seemed to lose interest. I'm afraid I can't help you. We only have alumni in our database. Is there anything else I can do for you? After Adam declined, he hung up and cursed in frustration. Damn it. All I'd accomplished was getting called for the next alumni fundraising campaign. After making no progress on the phone or on the line, he carved out an hour of free time the next day to visit the Graduate School of Business. When he got there, it was nearly empty. It's spring break, dumbass. Adam cursed to himself. But there were a few people there, and he pestered from one office to another, asking for information about Professor Bellingham. Finally, an assistant dean appeared before him. Sir, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to leave. If you don't comply, we will be forced to call campus security. Adam apologized and hurriedly withdrew, more upset than ever. Back in his office, he sat down heavily at his desk. After another futile check of his email, he dropped his head onto his hands. What am I going to do now? At that moment, the phone rang in his office. An unfamiliar voice asked, Are you the young man who is looking for Professor Bellingham? When Adam confirmed that he was, the man continued, My name is Dr. Avery Mayfair. I am a member of the faculty of the Graduate School of Business and may be able to help you. But first let me ask you why you are trying to find Professor Bellingham. Adam was hesitant to discuss his situation with a stranger, but desperation took over, and he briefly told Dr. Mayfair his reasons for searching for the missing professor. When he finished, his interlocutor made a thoughtful sound. I see. I overheard you questioning me at school today, and the way you phrased some of the questions made me wonder if there might be something like that. Anyway, I think I can put your mind at ease, young man. 2 years ago, Bellingham was an adjunct professor at the high school. He was a worthy instructor, but unfortunately, the enrollment in his course fell below the minimum requirements. His course was canceled, and his contract was not renewed. I see, Adam said. Does that mean that... That's not all, Dr. Mayfair continued. At the beginning of the current school year, I received a message from Professor Bellingham. He wrote to inform me that he had found a job at Black Hills State University in South Dakota. He's in South Dakota? Asked Adam in surprise. Quite right, confirmed the professor. And there's something else you might want to know about. In the same message, Professor Bellingham informed me of his recent marriage to his longtime roommate, Harold. Harold? That means that Bellingham? Exactly. Dr. Mayfair, thank you so much for your call. I still don't understand why anyone would want to send me such a treacherous letter, but now I'm sure it was a lie. I was hoping I could reassure you. Sir, may I ask one more question? Why did you decide to call me? Don't get me wrong. I'm very grateful, but I'm just a stranger to you. The tone of the professor's voice changed. I don't mind telling you, young man. Many years ago, something similar happened to me. My wife left me to run off with her lover, so I deeply sympathize with anyone who may be facing a similar situation. Fortunately, in this case, the warning you received turned out to be false, so I'm glad I was able to dispel your doubts. But, as you can imagine, I have very strong feelings about anyone who interferes in a marriage. If the accusation were true, I would not hesitate to inform you of it. Thank you, sir. You have no idea how much I appreciate what you've done. In the evening, Adam called Jerry to tell her the good news. I still don't know who is trying to destroy my marriage, but I now know for sure that Mel is not having an affair with Professor Bellingham. Are you sure you can trust this Dr. Mayfair? Absolutely. I checked him out after the call and found that he works in the business department. He's an older man, probably in his 60s, and appears to be highly respected. But just to make sure, I also checked Bellingham on the Black Hills website. And sure enough, he was there. That's great, Adam. You must be very relieved. Yes, I am. But now my problem is what to tell Mel when she gets home. That's easy, Adam. From what you told me about your confrontation with her, she never gave you a chance to talk. When she returns, tell her that you never had any doubts about her. Tell her that you had already found out about Bellingham, that you tracked him down as soon as you got the letter. But because she reacted so violently, you didn't get a chance to tell her about it. If you play your cards right, Adam, she'll apologize to you. I don't know, Jerry. It wasn't really like that. He heard the smile in her voice. Come on, Adam. Is it so bad to embellish the truth a little to get what you want? Melanie. On Sunday, before heading back into town, Melanie surprised Jerry with a phone call. Hi, girlfriend. I just wanted to check in with you before coming home to see how Adam is doing. I'm a little nervous about what I'm going to face when I get there. The only thing I know for sure is that you owe me a great debt of gratitude for everything I did for you while you were away with your affair. Through my help and good fortune, you will be able to return to your husband, and your marriage will be in better shape than ever. She then proceeded to recount the past week, ending with what Adam had learned of Bellingham's whereabouts. If you play your cards right, when you get home, Adam will apologize to you. You will apologize to him, and everything in your life will be back to normal. A pause hung on the line. What if I don't want things to go back to normal? I don't understand, Melanie. What are you saying? It's just that last week I had a blast. Carl, the guy I was with, is so much fun. Melanie's voice became a little hoarse. And most importantly, he's a fantastic lover. I haven't had that many orgasms in years. Anyway, I'm not ready for my little adventure to end yet. I want to keep seeing him, at least until the semester is over. Come on, Jerry, you have to help me find a way that will help me. Whoa, Melanie, you've already taken a big risk by going out with this guy for a week. If you try to keep the affair going here in town, you're taking a big risk, girl. Maybe, but you have to admit, your little plan worked perfectly. I bet you'll figure out a way for me to do it again. Come on, Jerry, please. This guy is really hot. I was afraid something like this might happen. There was a long pause. Okay, Jerry said slowly. I can come up with a plan to do what you want. But you have to realize that you'll jeopardize your marriage to Adam. He's a good guy, Melanie. He's hardworking, loyal, and a real family man. Men like him don't come along every day. Are you sure you want to risk it all for a little pleasure between the sheets? Melanie hummed. You got me at, I can come up with a plan. Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you. Now here's what you need to do. Do you still have that email account you created? Of course. You told me to keep it active. Good, because you need to send another email from Good Friend. Only this time you're going to send the message to yourself, to your regular email account. Okay, I guess. What does the new email say? It's exactly the same as the last one, only this time you write that Adam is having an affair with me. What? But that's not true, and Adam knows it. How does that help? It's simple. The first letter accused you of having an affair. Adam found out that you couldn't have been unfaithful with Professor Bellingham, but he may still have doubts about your fidelity. Wait a minute, Jerry. You said that Bellingham's letter would give me freedom in my relationship with Carl. It did. But now that he gets the second letter, he won't have any doubts. He has already proved that you were not having an affair with Bellingham, and he knows for a fact that he is not having an affair with me. Obviously, good friend is an absolute liar, which means Adam no longer has any reason to doubt you, which means you can do whatever you want without raising Adam's suspicions. A silence hung on the line. Then Melanie exclaimed, Jerry, you're a genius. I don't know how you came up with all this, but you just gave me a hall pass that I can use for the rest of the semester. There are 2 more things you need to do, Melanie. First, make sure Adam tells me about the second letter. Okay, but why? Because that way I can reinforce the idea that you are trustworthy and this unknown friend is not. Oh, that's good. He really cares about you, so he'll listen to your advice. What else? After you send the message to yourself, don't forget to log out of your good friend email account. You don't want Adam to accidentally find it. Oh my gosh, no. In fact, you should probably log out of both email accounts when you're not using them. You don't want Adam to find love notes from Carl. I warned Carl never to email me, but that's still good advice. Better to be safe than sorry. Adam. Returning home from work that evening, Adam was dismayed to find Melanie crying. Things had been going so well between them since she had returned from Florida that the sight of her upset took him by surprise. What's wrong, Mel? What's wrong? He asked, rushing over to her. Oh, Adam, it's starting all over again, she said tearfully, holding out a copy of the letter to him. Son of a bitch, he reprimanded, reading the accusatory message. You know that's a lie, don't you? Of course I do, honey. I know you'd never cheat on me, just as I wouldn't cheat on you. And even if you did cheat, I know it would never be with Jerry. She's such a good friend to both of us that she would never do anything like that. Damn it, someone is still trying to cause us problems, and I have no idea who or why. There has to be some way to track these things down. She hesitantly looked up at him. Are you going to tell Jerry about this? Do you think I should? I think you should. Like it or not, she's involved now. It wouldn't be fair to her not to let her know. The next morning when Adam called, Jerry answered in a friendly manner. So how are the 2 lovebirds doing today? Adam's tone was solemn. We're doing well, Jerry, but something new has come up that I need to talk to you about. Can you meet up after work? Actually, I'm planning on working from home this afternoon. Would you mind coming over to my house? Sure, that's fine. I'll come by between 6:30 and 7. Opening the door to her apartment that evening, Jerry immediately noticed the solemn expression on Adam's face. What's the matter, Adam? I've been worried ever since you called. He shook his head. I'm sorry, Jerry, but you seem to have gotten caught up in this whole Melanie and me thing. When she looked at him perplexed, he held out a copy of the last letter to her. As she read it, she looked at Adam in despair. But this is ridiculous. We're not having an affair. I would never do that to Melanie. I hope she knows that. He nodded. She knows. In fact, she told me the same thing. Jerry shook her head in confusion. I'm glad to hear that. But what do you think it all means? I think it means that someone wants very badly to stir up trouble between Melanie and me. First Professor Bellingham's warning, now this. The only thing I can think of is that I have an enemy, possibly a business rival. Only I have no idea who that might be. But anyway, since it seems to be about you now, Mel and I thought we should warn you. She nodded. I'm glad you did, Adam. You're always so thoughtful. But I don't know what we can do about it, unless the mystery man does something blatant or makes a mistake. I don't think calling the police would do any good. I agree, Jerry. but it's so frustrating. I'm sick of all this mess. I just wish whoever it is would leave us all alone. How is Melanie taking it? She's very upset. When I got home, she was in tears. I'm not surprised, especially after the ordeal the first one caused. Look, Adam, I think Melanie is very fragile right now. Because of all this, and the fact that she's so close to graduation, I think she's just on edge. You have to protect her as much as you can. Do you think we should both just block all mail from that account? That might be a mistake. If he sends anything else, I think you'll want to know about it. Yeah, you're right. But how do I protect Mel? For starters, if you get another one of those damned letters, I wouldn't tell her about it, at least not right away. For that matter, I think you should check her email on her laptop every chance you get. If she gets another email, you can forward it to her email before she sees it. That way, you won't have to involve her. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. He stood up. I'm sorry you had to be dragged into all this. If that's supposed to be an apology, I don't need one. I care about you a lot, and I'll do anything to help. He smiled gratefully. I'd better get home and see how Melanie is doing. He started to walk away, then turned, hugged Jerry and kissed her cheek. Thank you for being such a good friend. Having you by my side during all of this means a lot to me. When Adam got home, he was pleasantly surprised to find Melanie in a much more cheerful mood. The next morning, she was even more chipper and got up early to have breakfast with her husband. This is a real treat, Melanie. I don't get to see you that often before I go to work. Well, I didn't want you to leave this morning without being able to say, I love you, she told him, giving him a kiss. By the way, she added, I wanted to be sure to let you know that I'm going to a lecture on campus tonight. A couple of the girls and I are going to grab a bite to eat after it, so I'll probably be home pretty late. Sure, Mel, that's okay. We have plenty of leftovers in the fridge, so I can grab a snack here. Thanks, sweetie. I'll probably come home after school to drop off my school stuff and change. If I don't see you then, have a good night. Knowing Melanie wouldn't be home, Adam stayed late at the office. There was a change for the better in the business. A large potential client had really liked the samples of the new product, and Adam hoped they would place a trial order. At least something was becoming clearer. Now I just have to figure out who's playing mail games with me and Mel. He was still thinking about the mysterious good friend when he entered the house. Heading into the bedroom, he noticed Melanie's laptop standing on the table. Apparently, she didn't need it for the lecture. And then he remembered Jerry's offer. He wondered if she had logged into her email yet. If so, he'd have to see if she'd gotten anything new from the creep. The laptop came to life as he opened the case. The email page wasn't open, so he clicked on the Gmail link to see if she was logged in. A window opened, prompting him to select an account. He saw Melanie's email, but she was logged out, so he started to close Gmail. No sooner had he done so than he noticed a second account under her regular email, and when he took a closer look at it, he froze in bewilderment. The name of the account was Good Friend. What the hell? He exploded, looking at it. He tried to open it, but Google demanded, enter password. Not knowing the password, he closed the tab and then slumped in his chair, trying to make sense of what he saw. How could she have an email account with that name? I know Gmail doesn't allow two users to have the same name, but that would mean that Melanie was the one sending those other emails. Why would she do that? Why would she send me an anonymous email accusing her of having an affair? The answer came to him only a moment later. It must have been a diversion. She wanted me to chase after some gay professor in South Dakota because she was having an affair with someone else. Then another thought hit him like a punch to the gut. Her trip to Florida. When I showed her the letter, she pretended to be very upset with me. She said she was going to visit her mom, that she needed to be away from me. Now I wonder if she even saw her mom. He quickly pulled out his cell phone and pressed his mother-in-law's number. When the elderly woman answered, he spoke to her politely for a minute and then said, Say, Melanie and I were thinking of coming to visit you next month. Would it be too soon to see you again? Too soon? I haven't seen you in ages. Please come back when you can. He gritted his teeth in anger. Okay, fine. We'll get back to you when we figure out a date. Saying goodbye, he broke the connection and cursed. Son of a bitch. I wonder where Melanie had really gone. More importantly, I wonder who she left with. Son of a bitch. Then he remembered the last letter Melanie had gotten. What was it? Damn it, it must be another distraction to get his mind off her while she went to lectures with her girlfriends. Why that sneaky, lying bitch? Nay. He wondered what she wore when she left for the evening. He hurried back to the bedroom and began rummaging through his wife's underwear. He was having trouble remembering everything that belonged to Melanie, and he was about to give up. But a sudden suspicion gripped him, and he went back to check one more item, the garter belt. It was missing. He angrily looked for a matching bra and panties, but neither was there. Gone out to dinner with her girlfriends, huh? He put everything back and went back to the kitchen table to think. So you like sabotage and deception? Well, two can play that game. When Melanie got home after midnight, he was still seething with anger, but pretended to be asleep when she tiptoed into the bedroom. When he heard the shower turn on, he wished he hadn't gotten up and confronted her. Who knew going to lectures was such a sweaty job, he thought bitterly. The next morning, Adam got up very early and left for work, before Melanie even woke up. Next to the coffee pot, he left a note for his wife. I hope you enjoyed the lecture yesterday. I had to leave work early for a meeting, and I may be late today, so don't wait up for me. It was indeed a busy day for Adam, but his meetings were not with clients or suppliers. At lunch, he did a little shopping and then went home with some of his purchases to make some arrangements. After that, he went to 2 more meetings that took up the entire second half of the day. When everything was done, he went to dinner and a movie to pass the time. Melanie was already asleep when he climbed into bed, trying not to wake her. However, when she woke up the next morning, she found her husband already waiting for her. I thought you left for work a long time ago, dear, she said, gratefully accepting the cup of coffee he held out to her. I wanted to be sure to see you this morning because I have to catch a flight to Detroit at noon. I'll be gone for a few days calling potential clients. That's new. You don't get to travel that often. So when do you think you'll be back? Not until Friday night at the earliest. And if all goes well, I might not leave there until Saturday morning. Will you be okay here while I'm gone? She gave him a bright smile. Don't worry about me. I'm sure I can find something to do while you're gone. Good. Just try to stay away from our good friend while I'm gone. Her face darkened. That's not funny, Adam. I'm sorry. You're right. It's not funny. Then he waved her off, picked up his suitcase, and headed for the car. As he pulled out of the driveway, he frowned. She didn't even notice that I didn't say, I love you. I bet she's already making plans to get back together with her lover. Now I just need a little distraction to make sure her meeting takes place here at home. Instead of driving to the airport, Adam left the office on his lunch break and drove to the university. Parking near the campus, he walked briskly toward the Graduate School of Business. He had shed his usual sports jacket and slacks. He was now dressed in jeans and a sweatshirt. A cheap backpack was slung over his shoulder. Without raising his head, he headed into the reading room of the School of Business library. The few students paid no attention to him as he nonchalantly walked behind a rack of periodicals. Once out of sight, he pulled out a string of the largest firecrackers he could buy, lit the extra-long wick attached to them, and tossed them into a metal recycling bin. He then walked carelessly to the nearest door, propped it open with his backpack, and walked out. Once outside, he pulled out the cell phone he had purchased the day before and called campus security. Come quickly, there's a shooting at the School of Business, he shouted excitedly when his call was answered. I think there might be more than one. They're still shooting. Then he picked up the phone toward the library, and a few seconds later, a series of fireworks erupted. He cut the connection and hurried across campus to his car as sirens wailed and people started scattering in all directions. An hour later, he saw his wife's car pull up to his driveway. Then a second car pulled up behind her and a male figure emerged from it. In moments of danger, there's no place like home, Adam muttered with an unhappy chuckle. He then got into his car and drove to the motel where he had booked a room. Late that night, he drove around his neighborhood one more time to make sure the other car was still in his driveway. He then returned to his room and tried to sleep. When the couple left the house the next morning, they were surprised to find Adam leaning against the stranger's car door. "Oh my God, Carl, that's my husband!" Melanie gasped as she recognized him. "I thought you were in Detroit," she whispered, and immediately faltered when she realized how that sounded. "Honey, things aren't what they seem. Carl just stopped by to—" "Just stop, Melanie. Every time you open your mouth, all you do is lie. I don't want to hear it anymore." He made a grimace and gestured at the two of them. "That's exactly what it looks like. I know you both spent the night here, and I have a tape of everything you said and did together. So stop talking and listen." He grabbed the manila envelope tucked under his arm and held it out to her. "I'm suing you for divorce on grounds of adultery. Inside, you will find the name and number of my attorney. Find your own attorney and have him contact mine. But don't try to contact me, because after what you've done, I have no intention of seeing or talking to you again." "No, dear, don't say that. It was just a mistake, a one-time mistake. We can work things out, I promise." "I said stop lying," he growled. "It's not a one-time thing. You've been having fun with him for weeks. And it certainly wasn't a mistake. You planned it all out ahead of time. I know you're the one who sent that email to create a distraction and spend spring break together wherever you go. And by the way, your mom wants to know why you haven't visited her lately. I guess you've been so engrossed in that piece of shit," he gestured at the sullen man, "that you haven't even stopped by to see her." He paused to turn his attention to Melanie's lover. "Oh yeah, that reminds me." Adam quickly pulled out his cell phone and snapped a few pictures of the frightened man. When he realized what was going on, the man growled, clenched his fists, and stepped towards Adam in a threatening manner. Adam immediately reached into his jacket pocket and extended his arm far enough to reveal the butt of an automatic rifle. He said calmly. "I wouldn't do that if I were you. I have no intention of ruining my life by killing you, but I would be glad if you would give me the opportunity to shoot you in self-defense." "Whoa, whoa!" The man put his hands up and took a step back. Adam turned to Melanie with a chuckle. "Sounds like your boyfriend is a lover, not a fighter." Then his voice turned cold and cruel. "Take what you need from the house and then get out, Mel. Don't be here when I get back. I wasn't kidding when I said I didn't want to see you again." "Adam, please," she pleaded. "I never meant for things to turn out this way." He ignored her and walked to his car as she sank to the driveway and began to sob into her hands. On the way to the office, Adam stopped at a dumpster and tossed his phone in there as well as the toy machine he had in his pocket. "It's a good thing they make these things so realistic," he said with a wicked chuckle. Back at his desk, Adam sent an email on his cell phone with one of the pictures he had taken. To his surprise, he got a call back a few minutes later. "This is Dr. Mayfair. Did you just email me the picture?" "Dr. Mayfair, I'm sorry to impose on you again, but do you happen to recognize the man in the picture? I believe his name is Carl." "Is the woman standing next to him your wife?" "My ex-wife, I'm afraid." "A very beautiful woman. I think she was in one of my classes last year. As for the man next to her, I do recognize him. His name is Carl Mannheim. He happens to be one of my counselors." "Carl Mannheim. That's good to hear, doctor. I'm afraid I have a score to settle with your Mr. Mannheim." "So he was the serpent that spoiled your Garden of Eden." "Yes, in a way, but I'm afraid my Eve was far from innocent." "I see. That's very interesting. Well, I'm glad I was able to help you, although I'm sorry the outcome was not what you wanted." "Thank you, doctor. I appreciate your time and your help, even though it turned out that way." "Well, good luck to you, my boy, and don't give up hope. Things always work out for the best. Trust someone who's been through it and made it to the other side." Adam, 2 months later. Adam sat across from his lawyer and pondered. "Have you heard from Melanie's attorney yet? How are things going with the divorce?" Yes, I spoke to Hannah Montrose yesterday, and today she sent a counteroffer to Melanie. The good news is that Melanie has decided not to fight the divorce anymore. Apparently, after Hannah heard the tapes you made at your house, she convinced your wife not to risk having them played in court. But the bad news is that now that Melanie has resigned herself to the fact that the marriage is over, she seems intent on getting as much out of you as she can get financially. Damn. She lies and cheats me, and when she gets caught, she expects me to pay her for the privilege. It's just not fair. So what does my cheating wife want? Normally, I would expect to see a request for a division of all your property. But in this case, there's not much to divide. You rent out the house, you have no retirement plan, and very little savings. The only asset you have is a stake in your business, which is operating at a loss. Apparently, she expects it to go bust, so she's only asking the court for alimony. I certainly appreciate her vote of confidence in me, Adam sarcastically quipped. So how much alimony does she want? A lot more than we offered. The lawyer held out a sheet to his client. Adam looked at it and gasped. This is ridiculous. She knows I can't afford it. If I have to shell out that amount of money every month, I'm basically liquidating my business to pay her. What can I say? Melanie refuses to negotiate, so that's exactly what Hannah will offer Judge Abernathy. Well, I'm not going to give Melanie that much money without a fight. I'll have to take my chances in court. Okay, Adam, I see where you're going with this. But remember, Judge Abernathy has absolute power. You will be left with whatever he decides. Almost exactly a month later, Adam sat in the courtroom and waited anxiously. After both attorneys had presented their arguments, Judge Abernathy called a recess. How do you think it's going? Whispered Adam to his attorney. I have no idea. The case could go either way, or the judge could make some sort of compromise decision. A few seconds later, they were ordered to stand as Judge Abernathy returned to the courtroom. When they were seated again, the judge called for opposing counsel to approach the bench. I assume your clients have not changed their position on the financial settlement? Both attorneys exchanged glances. No, Your Honor. Very well. Before ruling, I'd like to ask Mrs. Weatherby a few questions. Hannah Montrose looked startled, but then smiled and gestured for Melanie to step forward. Everything will be fine, she whispered to her client. Just remember to address him as Your Honor. Adam's attorney took his seat and leaned toward Adam. It's usually not a good sign when the judge wants to hear more from the other side. Adam watched with regret as his soon-to-be ex-wife made her appearance in court. The suit she was wearing was a conservative cut, but fitted enough to favorably accentuate her figure. He noticed the judge watching Melanie and shook his head. I think we're done for, he whispered to his attorney. The judge looked over the papers in front of him and then turned to face the woman sitting in the witness box. Now, Mrs. Weatherby, it appears that the only issue separating the two of you is the amount of alimony to be awarded. Your proposal calls for an amount considerably higher than what your husband has offered. Quite correct, Your Honor. And what is your justification for the amount you are proposing? We are asking for a higher amount in recognition of my years of marriage and the fact that I will have to start my life virtually from scratch, Your Honor. I see. However, Mr. Weatherby claims that his only source of income is the company he founded, which is still operating at a loss. What makes you think Mr. Weatherby can afford the financial support you've offered? Your Honor, we contend that Adam was intentionally reducing his true income by siphoning funds into his business. He could easily pay the alimony I am requesting by simply modestly adjusting his current level of investments. The audited financial statement shows a negative cash flow. Your Honor, Adam's accountants can manipulate the numbers to show any result they want. The judge raised his eyebrows. Are you saying the financial statements are fraudulent? Melanie's attorney turned pale and shook her head emphatically. Melanie noticed this and quickly pulled herself together. No, Your Honor, not at all. It's just that income can be deferred and investments can be accelerated and still stay within generally accepted accounting principles. He's investing too much in his company, that's all. Adam felt his blood pressure rising. He leaned toward her and whispered angrily, What a bitch. She knows it's not true. She's just trying to pressure me to get what she wants regardless of the consequences. Meanwhile, Judge Abernathy was reviewing the case summary lying in front of him. So far, we've focused on your husband's investment in his business, Mrs. Weatherby. From what I can see, it appears that Mr. Weatherby has also invested heavily in you, or at least in your education. If you're referring to my MBA, Your Honor, it's true that Adam paid for my education, but I was the one who did the hard work in all the courses, took all the tests, and wrote my thesis. I've worked day and night for the last 2 years, including last summer. And you just graduated, is that correct? Yes, sir. I graduated with honors, she said proudly. He nodded. Very good, Mrs. Weatherby, that's all. You may sit down. When Melanie was again seated next to her attorney, Judge Abernathy raised his glasses and considered both sides for a while. Having heard all the evidence, I award Mrs. Weatherby the full amount of financial support she has requested. Adam shuddered, and Melanie leaned over and hugged her attorney, but the judge wasn't finished yet. This financial settlement amounts to a monthly sum that will allow Mrs. Weatherby to live quite comfortably without working for the foreseeable future. However, she has just completed a college degree that should prepare her for a high-paying position in business. To give her extra motivation to use her expensive education, I am awarding Mrs. Weatherby only 6 months of alimony. 6 months? You can't do that, shrieked Melanie. I can, and I already have, replied the judge. Then he banged his gavel on the wooden block. Next case. Edit. The lawyer hurriedly pulled Melanie away from the bench, though she was still trying to appeal the decision. Only the appearance of the big bailiff convinced the unhappy young woman to stop her actions. I only have to pay child support for 6 months? I can live with that, Adam said to his attorney as they stood up and started to leave the courtroom. How about that? Replied Adam's attorney cheerfully. I thought we lost when the judge picked her number, but I guess he wasn't too impressed with the way she tried to milk the blood out of you. Still, not many husbands do so well in divorce court. I wonder what made him take you so lightly. You don't think the fact that she didn't contest the adultery charge was a factor, do you? He shouldn't have taken that into account in determining financial compensation. Adam glanced around once more to watch Melanie continue to argue with her attorney and grinned. Whatever it is, I'm happy with the way things turned out. At that moment, he was grabbed by the arm, and Adam turned around to see an older man he had never met before, but who seemed vaguely familiar. I wanted to introduce myself, the gray-haired man explained. I'm Professor Mayfair. Adam grabbed his hand and shook it firmly. Professor, it's an unexpected pleasure to meet you in person, sir. Thank you again for your assistance. What brings you to court today? The elderly man smiled. After our chat, I became interested in your case and decided to stop by to see how things turned out. Then his smile grew wider. It also gave me the opportunity to have a word with an old friend of mine, Judge Abernathy. He shook Adam's hand once more. I'm glad things worked out well for you. If I can ever help again, I'd be happy to do so. He winked. We divorced husbands have to stick together. As the professor walked away, Adam looked up to follow him. I wonder, he muttered, then shook his head. Out of the corner of his eye, he thought he spotted Jerry in the crowd of onlookers, but when he turned to look, she wasn't there. Melanie, 30 months later. She pressed a familiar number on her cell phone, and when she was answered, she hesitantly said, Hi, Jerry, it's me, Melanie. Melanie, what a surprise. I haven't heard from you since you moved to Florida. How have you been doing? Honestly, it's been a pretty rough few years. As a matter of fact, that's why I called. I really needed to talk to a friendly voice. Sure. Tell me what's going on. Are you working right now? Actually, that's part of the problem. I thought that with my MBA, I wouldn't have a problem finding a good job. But it turns out that employers here are more interested in experience than an academic degree. Most of the jobs I was offered were internships or practicums. Oh dear, that doesn't sound very lucrative. So where did you end up? When the child support stopped, I got pretty desperate. I even took a job as an administrative assistant for a while, but it was awful. So now I've started a new career in financial counseling. In fact, that's one of the reasons I called. I can do an analysis of your financial situation if that's okay with you. You'd be surprised how many people neglect this sort of thing. There was a brief pause. Oh, Melanie, I'd love to help you, but my finances are in good shape right now, and I'm quite confident about tomorrow. I really don't think I need any help. I'm sorry. It's okay, Jerry. I hear that a lot, but I thought I'd give it a try. It's so hard to get a foothold in this business. I had to move in with my mother to cut costs. You live with your mother? What happened to you and Carl? Don't even mention that bastard's name. We broke up just a few months after we got here. Separated? What happened? Oh, Jerry, it was awful. Carl dropped out of school without ever getting his MBA. I don't know exactly what happened, but his advisor rejected his master's thesis and told Carl he'd have to start over. Carl became very bitter and decided not to go back. He refused to look for a job and hung around our apartment all day, playing video games and drinking. After a while, he started taking his resentment out on me. It got so bad that at one point I had to call the police on him. Oh, Melanie, how awful for you. I think you're lucky to be rid of him. And look on the bright side. Now you're free to go out and meet new people and have fun and dance whenever you want. I remember how much you missed all that when you were married. Melanie sighed. Nightclubs and parties take money, Jerry, and I don't have a lot of spare cash right now. And to tell you the truth, when I do go out, it's not nearly as glamorous and exciting as I used to think it was. And actually, I remember a girlfriend warning me that there are a lot more creeps in the world than good guys. She paused, but when Jerry didn't say anything, Melanie decided to change the subject. What about you, Jerry? How are you doing? Are you seeing anyone special these days? Actually, my situation has changed quite a bit, Mel. What's more, I'm getting married next month. Married? That's amazing. And who's the lucky guy? Do I know him? Yes, actually, you do, actually. This is Adam, Melanie. Adam and I are engaged. My Adam? You're engaged to my Adam? You can't do that. I'm afraid I already have. We'll have a small civil ceremony in the backyard of our new home, and then we'll fly to Paris for our honeymoon. New house? A honeymoon in Paris? Adam can't afford all that. Not only has my situation changed dramatically, but Adam's has as well. The same month you moved to Florida, he got that big order he'd been working on for so long. After that, his business really took off. Apparently, his new product is just what the automotive industry needs. And that's not all. Earlier this year, Adam received an offer from a major manufacturer to buy his business for a fortune. He accepted, and the deal will be finalized next week. So, as you can see, you don't have to worry about our financial future. Melanie could only stammer, but Jerry didn't relent, and now her tone had changed. You know, all of this could have been yours, Melanie, but you weren't content with what you had. I warned you from the beginning that you were risking everything by having your little affair. I also warned you that there would be women who would gladly pick up the pieces if your marriage fell apart. But you were the one who encouraged me. You were the one who figured out how I could. Suddenly, Melanie's voice rose with shock. Oh my God, Jerry, it was you. You planned the whole thing, right from the beginning. All I did was tell you about a harmless little fantasy. You manipulated me into acting on it. You tricked me into believing I could get away with having an affair. Really, Melanie, you're exaggerating. I didn't force you to do anything you didn't want to do. All I did was give you enough rope to hang yourself. I can't believe it. I bet it was you who told Adam about Carl. You're smarter than that, Melanie. Think about it. If I told Adam, he'd wonder how I knew. That wouldn't have been very smart of me, would it? On the other hand, I told you not to delete your secret Gmail account and advised Adam to check his email. I use Gmail all the time, so I was sure he'd see it there. So no, Melanie, I didn't tell Adam about your lover. All I did was arrange the dominoes so they fell where I wanted them to. I can't believe this. I trusted you, Jerry. I thought you were my friend. Jerry laughed. You know what they say? All's fair in love and war. You're not getting away with this, bitch. I'll make sure Adam finds out what you've done. What a schemer you really are. He'll definitely call off the wedding once he finds out the truth. I'm sorry, Melanie, but I'm afraid I must cut our conversation short. Adam and I have plans for this evening, and I want to look especially good for him. And don't you dare call back. I'll block your number as soon as I hang up. You sneaky, sneaky bitch. Adam, 30 months and 1 day later. Jerry greeted her husband-to-be with a kiss when he returned from work. Adam kissed her back and then pulled a piece of paper out of his jacket. You won't believe who sent me a letter today. Melanie. Really? Said Jerry carelessly. I'd almost forgotten about her. What does she want? Adam looked at his fiancée, CE, expressionlessly. Actually, she wrote to warn me about you. She says you planned everything that happened just to keep Mel and me apart. That's pretty wild. Can I see it? Asked Jerry. He held out a printout to her. She scanned it quickly and then handed it back to him with a smile. Poor Melanie. She could have followed through with her little jealous fantasy if she'd done one more thing. He looked at her curiously. She winked at him. She should have signed it good friend. It took him a few minutes to stop laughing. The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.